One of the biggest flaws I see on takeaway is this elbow breaks and then the club gets sucked way inside. So there's no, if you can see right here, there's no separation between. Welcome to episode 8 of the Wade Fillingham Golf Show, where I'm here to teach you unmatched strategies to lower your scores, enjoy the game more, and build epic practice plans so you can play your best golf. Today, we're gonna talk about creating a takeaway that develops consistency. There's 4 steps we're gonna walk through. Let's dive into the video. So step 1 is chest rotation. So we're gonna talk about how we should be moving the chest in the very first move. So we're talking about the first 6 to 12 inches of the move. And what I want you to look at is one of the big mistakes I see a lot is I see a shoulder dip instead of a rotation. So I think it's really important that your first move is a rotation. So feeling like this side of the club is staying, this is exaggerated, higher, which makes you rotate better, versus dipping, which tends to make me dip towards the target and it causes problems in the backswing. So what we want to do is you want to feel like we turn the chest and we keep the pelvis really still. Our knees don't move much. We're just trying to get that first motion and trying to get that separation. So like I said, grab a club right here and just follow along. And just really work hard on just getting that first little bit of separation without moving the lower body. And make sure you're moving your shoulders flatter instead of creating too much side bend. There is going to be side bend, but we just don't want to create too much. So feeling like you're actually opening your chest instead of rocking your shoulders this way will make a massive difference. So just work on that rotation. Second, I want you to grab a ball, some kind of ball that you can put between your forearms. I'm gonna put a link below to this. This is called impact ball. Now this is the junior size version. I'm definitely gonna want you to use the bigger one. We just don't have the bigger one right now. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna put this in between your forearms. And now the second part is we're gonna work on extension and not breaking the elbow. So one of the biggest flaws I see on takeaway is, let me put this ball down actually, is this elbow breaks and then the club gets sucked way inside. So there's no, if you can see right here, there's no separation between my hips and my hands. Everything gets real stuck against the body. And that's gonna create an arm swing at the top. And we don't wanna create just too much of an arm swing here. So this elbow breaks, there's some separation. So what a ball would do wonders for in your takeaway is create that width and extension, because now you gotta pinch it, and now you've gotta turn your chest, because you can't break your elbow. I'm gonna drop this ball. So now I have to rotate my chest like we did, like we talked about, where it's a little bit flatter, right? Instead of rocking it this way, which you can see my head dip, right? Now we have to open up our chest, and now the club gets moving a little bit more rounded, right? It's the hand pass a little bit more rounded. A lot of my players, the hands go out, the club goes in, and so it's not a rounded backswing, it's an arm swing, right? So, and then now you can see I'm getting this extension right here, this space between my hands and my legs. If you look at the face-on view, now I'm getting this extension because now I have to turn my chest to take the club back. I can't just take it back with my hands. So grab a ball and do this with me and really feel that width and extension. This is exaggerated, but you have to turn your chest. So between a good rotation and extension, you're gonna start creating a takeaway that's more connected. All right? Now, what you can do in the next phase here is take a basket or a pan, something with an open end, and I want you to grab it like this, okay? Set your club on the ground. And what you're gonna do is we're gonna talk about getting rid of forearm roll. So let's discuss about forearm roll real quick. So forearm roll is when the hands are rolling open. Instead of keeping the hands more stacked, we're getting this rolling motion of the hands. And that creates timing in the downswing, because now the face is open into the backswing because this opens the club face, and now we're gonna have to do something to square it up, because all we wanna do is create a golf swing that controls the club face. Because remember this, I say this all the time in these videos, your club face has a 3 times greater influence on starting direction than club path. So you can change your club path all day long, but what's really gonna control where the ball starts is where your face is aimed at impact. So if we can change moves in our golf swing that stop face rotation, that generates more consistency, this can be one of those things, getting rid of this rolling. So let's discuss how that motion should look. I'll go ahead and do a face-on view too so you can see both angles here. But I want you to pay attention mostly to the down the line, but sometimes it helps to see the face on as well. A lot of my clients, they'll break this elbow and then it'll open up like this, right? But even here, you can almost still get form rotation with the arm straighter, but you can see the arm start to folding. But all I want you to do for like the first 12 inches is feel like you keep the open end of the basket facing in front of you, okay? That's gonna stop the club from rolling open and getting this rolling pattern. It's actually gonna really help you create that width and extension. It kind of adds to it, and it stops face rotation. There's gonna be a little bit, you can see it's turning a little bit. It has to turn at some point, or unless you wanna look like Matt Wolff, okay? Matt Wolff keeps the basket like this as long as possible, and then he comes through, right? But I don't think that matches up for a lot of people. So I think it's important that just for the first 12 inches, you feel like the hands stay more stacked on top of each other. So you can see here, my hands are more like this instead of rolled like this. So feeling the hands stay more stacked a little bit longer with that width and good chest rotation will help a lot. Okay, now the final piece is getting the club head in the right position in the takeaway. Now, there's gonna be some variance here depending on if you like to have flexion at the top of your swing. So understand this is not exact science, it's a little bit different for everybody. But the general idea of where we want the club head to be at shaft parallel, which is really where the takeaway stops, so when the shaft gets parallel to the ground, is now we want to look at having the club head out in front of us or on our hand line. We typically don't like to see it behind us. There are a couple of tour players where that is the case, okay? But those are the guys that get in lots of flexion, because one thing you'll notice is if my left wrist goes into flexion, then flexion gets the club inside. So if you're a player that likes to have a lot of flexion, then having a takeaway that's a little bit inside or the club that's a little bit inside is generally okay. But if you're not one of those guys, you're a flat wrist guy or maybe a little bit cupped, you definitely don't want that way inside because that's opening the club face. So here's what we want to do. Now that we got our chest turning well, and now we got the extension, and now that we have our hands stacked, okay, now what we want to do is we want to generate the motion that gets the club in front of us. Instead of rolling it inside and going into flexion this way, it's almost like the wrist kind of goes into extension a little bit as we take it back, because like I said, flexion goes inside, extension will help get the club out in front of us. So feeling like your wrist kind of bends down like this a little bit as you hinge the club will get the club more out in front of you. Just like that. Instead of sucking it inside, now it's gonna get more out in front of you, just like that. So as long as you can get the club between here and here, somewhere right in there, I think that's a good position for most golfers. You know, I mean, if you're right here, it's not terrible, but the rule of thumb is on the hand line or slightly in front. If you go look at Justin Thomas's takeaway, his is really good. It's right there. It's about right there in front of him. He's not getting it behind him, because from there, we're gonna be able to get the club up into the backswing and set it in a very solid position. Or if you need a little bit of assistance with that last piece of getting the club out in front of you, if you have a carry bag, it can help you tremendously. So what you're gonna do is set up your golf ball, take the club in where all the clubs come out, and set it even with your pelvis, with your hips, right? So I'm gonna get this in even with my hips, and what you're gonna do is you're gonna work on getting the club to hinge up that golf bag, because if you hinge it inside, you can see I knocked it over, and that's not good. So put it about even with your hips, okay? And then just work on getting the club to hinge up that line. So you're gonna turn your chest, hinge up that line. That's gonna really stop you from sucking it way inside and getting the club behind you. So if you don't have this, you can probably make something up at the something similar that's at the same angle as your shaft at address. So give that a shot. That'll really help aid you in fixing that last part of the takeaway. So I want you to walk through those steps of building that takeaway and go one by one, all right? But if you want to take this further and really build a practice plan around it, I want you to subscribe to my weekly practice plan. So I'm going to send you practice plans every week based off that week's video. And if you miss one, you can always go back and find the other ones, watch the video, and still download those practice plans. But it's really going to help you. So all you have to do is go to wfg.golf/practice plan, and you can snag that, and you can get new practice plans every week, because I'm here to help you play your best golf. So definitely take advantage of that. I hope this was helpful. See you in the next video.